Welcome to Metabolic Mastery, brought to you by KORR Medical Technologies. I'm Dr. Mark Humbert. This is Dr. Cameron Garber. And today we're introducing a new segment that's going to be on repeat occasionally. It's called Contrary to Popular Belief, where we break down common misconceptions and do some debunking. These are things that we'll dive more into on later episodes, but this is just to kind of whet your appetite, give you a taste, and get you interested for more. So let's dive right in with the first point. Zone 2 doesn't have to be breathless. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so a lot of the time people will talk about what does zone 2 feel like, because not everybody has gotten tested, which again, go out and get tested, or if you're a clinician, get the equipment, be able to test your patients, because it really will be the biggest game changer. If you're a gym owner, it's such a great way to help people actually make progress and be able to stick to their goals. It is such a big game changer. So go get tested or get the equipment to be able to test people, because it's so helpful. So zone 2 doesn't have to be breathless. When people are trying to figure out what that feels like, they'll often use different terms of like, well, you can say a full sentence, but you're still breathing, heavy. You can't hold a full conversation like Mark and I are here, but you can spit out a sentence or two at a time. They use a lot of ways of estimating that. Honestly, it doesn't have to be that breathless. Zone 2 is a range, and being right at the edge of that range, there's no additional benefit to that. And so you're better off just keeping it light, keeping it easy. The change comes, the biggest benefit comes from the zone 4 and 5 training that we do. So zone 2 is just about getting volume of training in. And so instead of pushing it really hard or right at the edge of your zone 2 all the time, stay comfortably in zone 2. And if you're still going with being able to talk, you may still be getting plenty of benefit from it. Again, the key is finding out where your zone 2 really should be and doing that. And then you'll have more gas in the tank for your zone 4 or 5, where change and adaptation for getting faster and more fit really happens.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't have to be where you're out of breath or just spitting out a sentence at a time.
Well, I think we have this misconception that if I exercised well, I have to feel awful afterwards. And that's just not true.
Right.
Those high-end adaptations like you talked about will be more exhausting, right? They're more of that all-out effort. But it's really about getting in a high volume. And if we're too exhausted, we're not going to be able to get in the high volume. And that's what drives the adaptations that are associated with zone 2. And so if you're always out of breath, then you're probably not optimizing that selection for those adaptations. And like you said, I think it's just a unique trick of psychology that we just have to push it. We just have to push it.
Right.
Oh, zone 2, like I'm just going to stay right towards that top edge. And then I'll really be getting the benefits, because we think, oh, harder, better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, can my body recover from this? Can I do this again and again and again and again and again on repeat for years?
Right. Right. No, we're just as effective often finding where we're most efficient at burning calories. Maybe not like the efficiency of zone 1, because the number of calories is so little in zone 1, but zone 2, like, find where that most effective burning point is, and let's hang out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not always right at the edge. Which brings us into our next point of exercise is not where we lose weight. We love to think about exercise is where I earn weight loss. Exercise, unfortunately, is not where we lose weight. Exercise is where we tune up the machine so that our body burns more calories with everything that we do. And the more tuned up that machine is, the more our daily activities, the more our recreational activities, the things that we enjoy doing, burn more calories that work more in our favor. It tunes up the machine so that we feel like doing those activities. And it helps us burn more calories even at rest. And so the more that we use exercise to build a better fat burning and calorie burning machine, a better glucose sink, meaning it helps us process glucose better. The more muscle we have, the more it does that. The more of those adaptations we make with our exercise, the more it helps us benefit the other 23 hours of our day. And that's where weight loss actually happens, is in those other 23 hours. That, 1 hour, I'm just using that as an example, that 1 hour of exercise, though, is what really helps tune up the machine for the rest. It's the sharpening the saw for chopping the wood more effectively.
Such a good way to look at it. And even in addition to that, it's like exercise just affects every body system. We've talked about how it's the poly pill.
Yeah.
And so even if we don't lose weight, right? Losing weight and getting to a healthy body weight is still important for a variety of reasons. But independent of that, just improving our fitness has huge effects on our risk for death from any cause, but also in just performing well and feeling good along the way. And so you can have people like they've done several studies that have looked at this. They've pulled a bunch of people together and they found that people that were overweight but had high fitness were at much lower risk than people that were at normal weight but of low fitness. Yeah. And so exercise really is so necessary. But if we're using it just to lose weight and we're like, oh, I've got to do this, right? I've got to work harder. I've got to work longer. Then we're missing the point of what exercise is designed to do. And I love that analogy of sharpening the saw is really it's tuning things up so that we can work better for everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so the more, effort we put into our exercise in dialing that in, getting it right, testing your clients so that they know exactly where their zones are so that they can do it right.
What?
Right. That's how we sharpen that saw.
Yeah.
And then we're going to be much more effective. So this kind of brings us to our other point about burning fat, is that just because we're burning fat in our workouts, just because we're in our zone 2 and burning fat, doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be fat loss. We still have to get a few things right with that equation.
Absolutely. And so I think this is crucial because people are like, oh, I got to be in the fat burn zone. I got to be in the fat burn zone. And then they neglect what they're doing the rest of the day, or they use their exercise as an excuse to like, oh yeah, well that donut, that, cheese blizzard is fine. And again, it's not that any foods are bad per se, but it's does the way that we're fueling our bodies allow us to get just enough energy so that we can build what needs to be built so that we can function well without adding on a ton of excess fat, which has all sorts of health implications. Right. And so I may be oxidizing a lot of fat, but if I'm eating a surplus of calories, then I'm also going to be storing a lot of fat.
Right.
And so it's not this one-to-one thing that I think we often think it is.
Right. Well, and it's not always 100% calories in, calories out. At the same time, if you're eating at a calorie surplus, the likelihood that you're going to still lose weight is very, very low, if not impossible. And so you do have to get that balance right. And just because you're burning a lot of fat during your workouts or during your lifestyle, if you're still eating more calories than that, you're still gonna put on weight or maintain that weight. And so, yeah, just because you're burning fat, just because you're in zone 2, doesn't necessarily mean that you're on this bullet train for weight loss. So people will then ask when we say that, well, so does that mean that I have a fast metabolism or a slow? It's usually slow metabolism.
I don't think everyone's ever been like,
right,
do I have a fast metabolism?
Right. Do I even...
I know I have a slow one.
Right. Or do I even have a metabolism anymore?
Yeah. That thing turned off. The hamster is no longer running on the wheel.
Yeah, exactly. So yes, you still have a metabolism, and it's likely neither fast nor slow. It just is what it is for your body. We think too much about fast and slow metabolism. Funny enough, often in terms of resting metabolic rate, the largest people tend to have the highest resting metabolic rates because they just have more body to manage and take care of. And so the metabolic rate isn't always fast versus slow. That isn't really the most important part. It's more of let's do what your body needs. And testing your clients, testing your patients is going to allow you to know what their body needs. And so that's why that's so important. So getting tested leads to knowing the right numbers so that you can get that balance right. Whether that's calorie counting or not, I'm not a big fan of calorie counting, but still being calorie aware helps inform the decision making. And that's the key, is helping your people make the right decisions on a day-to-day basis so that they can see success.
Absolutely. Well, and having that data of how my body is actually working real time, right? Part of getting it tested is that we're not dealing with any of those metabolic calculations, which can be anywhere from like 10 to 30+% off.
Right.
And so knowing what's happening real time in my body then helps me to troubleshoot my lifestyle. Okay, well, hey, my metabolism actually isn't broken. And so what are small and simple changes that I can put into the framework of my environment, the framework of my habits, so that I can begin to work more in line with my own body?
Right.
And when we go about it that way, it's a lot less frustrating. It becomes more sustainable, and we really make the adaptations that we're looking to make, independent of whether we have a fast or a slow metabolism.
Right.
It's like you said, what is my metabolism? And knowing that, what am I going to do to make positive change in my life?
Right. And that's the key is what changes, what adaptations am I making in my life? So we're big fans, Mark and I are big fans of lifestyle modification and kind of more of that lifestyle adaptation as part of helping people make their goals and be able to see the changes in their body, and that lifestyle change really is important. But often in medicine, in healthcare, in fitness, we tend to see people get into silos and say, I'm a functional medicine, or I'm a lifestyle medicine, or I am a, traditional practitioner. And we tend to be in those silos and not feel like we can step outside of that. I personally see, and this is the last myth that we're going to talk about today, is that it's not an either or,
Yeah.
it's an and. I think we can be both medications that are life-saving and lifestyle intervention and functional medicine to some degree. Like all of those things have their place, and I think it's about finding the hybrid between those things and where each has its purpose and value. If you have a life-saving or a life-threatening illness, taking a medication that helps get you off of the edge of that long enough that you can do the lifestyle interventions, why not?
Yeah.
If I've got a broken leg, we're not just going to lifestyle that away. Like, I need those medical interventions to help me get my leg right so that I can do the lifestyle piece again. And so if I need seizure medications, that's going to affect how I can live my lifestyle if I'm frequently having seizures. So I take the seizure medications to help me control those seizures, and I can do some things with my life and lifestyle that means that I can maybe take a smaller dose, or that helps me manage that even better. But the medication is still important. Same thing with weight loss or other things. It's not an either or, it's an and.
Yeah.
We do all of the things that we need to do so that we can see progress and give people the chance and the hope to actually see progress.
Absolutely. And it's not this moral thing, right? You're a bad person because you're using,
Or it's cheating
or it's cheating.
in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, you're talking about life-saving medications and stuff. I think that I'm kind of a great example of that. And this is not to toot my own horn, but I have hemophilia. It's a blood clotting disorder. And so as a result, I have to take a medication regularly. It's a life-saving medication, otherwise big problems. And I have to preface this that I have been just incredibly blessed in my life to have amazing mentors and amazing access to good healthcare that has given me the set of tools to manage my condition well.
Well, and parents that allowed you to be active and all those things.
Absolutely. Like there is that huge foundation that I recognize and I know that I benefited from. And yet there's so many people with hemophilia that take the life-saving medication, but their quality of life is terrible.
Yeah.
They go from watching Netflix at night and go to a sedentary job and then go back home and back to Netflix and just don't do a lot of activity because they're so scared. And their lifestyle just doesn't support long-term health. And so people end up developing diabetes, metabolic syndrome, other things that in an effort to protect their health, they end up degrading their health over time. And so I've been so lucky to have this amazing life-saving medication that's been so life-changing for me. And yet also doing the other things, doing regular strength training, trying to eat a balanced diet, doing regular aerobic training so that my body systems are tuned up. And both of those pieces together have created the life that I'm able to enjoy now. It wasn't one or the other. I needed both. Like if I didn't have the life-saving medication, I couldn't recover from exercise and activity. my blood wouldn't clot normally, because what happens throughout the day is we get micro tears in our tissues and our blood vessels, but our body's really good at repairing that, healing that. But that process doesn't work normally in my body unless I have that medication. And so I really would be sidelined from living the life I want if I didn't have that to use. But combining those both together has just had this amazing impact in my life. And I'm so grateful for both the lifestyle and the medicine.
Right. Well, so I hope I tell this story right, but Mark told me the story one time of when he was a small child, one of the physicians that he had did him a great service by saying, look, medically, we can control the bleeds. We can use the miracle of modern medicine to control the bleeds. So go and live your life. Go be active. And he encouraged his parents to let him be active. And what great advice. And no matter what the condition or chronic condition is, I think that's great advice. Still be active. We can use the miracle of modern medicine to control the other factors, but living the lifestyle is going to give you more quality of life. And so that hybrid of the two, of the and not the either or, really is important. So we'll dive more into that. I understand that all of these topics we have just kind of surface touched on, and some of them may be somewhat controversial. I guess we're doing that somewhat intentionally, because we want you to listen to future episodes and to share your 2 cents as well about it. Like, follow, subscribe, and comment. We would love to hear your thoughts on these things, but we want to dive deeper into each of those so that you can get more information on why each of these things are somewhat myths, and so that we can flesh those out and go on this intellectual journey with one another.
Absolutely. And really, bottom line, we want you to be able to live better, healthier lives. We want you to take the information and apply it to your lifestyle so that you can be the example for other people in your life, so that you can show what it looks like to live healthy, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, all those things. And having a greater understanding of how our body works and how to apply these concepts can really give you the tools that you need to live a better life, live better longer.
Right. Well, and you probably have a fairly good foundation in the understanding of a lot of those things. It's a lot of the application. And so being able to apply this to both yourself and to your patients and to your clients, being able to take that information and get more of that rubber meets the road. That's why we're doing this podcast, is to be able to help people understand not just the science behind metabolism, but also the how to implement these things into life and lifestyle.
Absolutely. So like Cameron said, remember to like, follow, and subscribe to get more content like this. And we look forward to seeing you in the future.